everybody. Welcome to another episode of Brew and Banter podcast. Today we have an exciting episode for you. We have a few hot topics, but we also have a special guest joining us in for today's episode. So we're really excited. So without further ado, let's get into what you're brewing. Ebony, let's go.
I just got coffee because it's early and I need it. So just good old coffee with cream.
Dr. Dre, what you sipping on?
Well, y'all had me rushing, so all I could do was pour straight vodka into this glass.
It's 9
We're starting
a.m.
early.
I have decided to do what I
5
want because I'm an entire adult, so thank you.
No one. Okay.
Cheers.
Okay. That's fine. Enough said. I'm also drinking coffee. I decided to do like a little iced rice coffee with some oatmeal creamer right now because I was like, since we have a special guest, I can't indulge with Dre like I always do. So yeah, we're gonna try to keep it cute today. And we have a special. Oh yeah, we have a special guest in the building today, Mr. Frederick Smith. Mr. Frederick Smith, what are you sipping on?
Just a little iced coffee I made this morning.
Well, iced coffee.
Yeah.
Does it have vodka? How come no one is brewing on something that needs to be actually brewed? Like, what's going on?
Because I got an adult today. So
It's Saturday. Adulting is for other days.
Without slurring or making headlines.
OMG.
you got to keep it cute over here, you know?
Yeah. Not
Y'all
gonna
keep
pull
it
a
cute.
drunk Mickey Newman from Young and the Restless or something like that.
Well, like I said, today's guest is a very special guest. He's a new friend of mine. He's a man who has the pen, the passion, the purpose. He's a Detroit-born, Bay Area-based author of 6 romantic novels celebrating black queer love. His latest, One and Done, is a high-ed romance with heart and heat set in the Bay Area, out now on Bold Stokes Books. When he isn't writing, he's an accomplished student affairs and diversity leader at San Francisco State University, champions social justice, uplifting educational dreams, a lover of novels, and all things Beyonce. We're thrilled to have him here as our first guest of the season. Again, give a warm welcome to our new friend, Mr. Frederick Smith. Thank you for joining us. Like I said, I just recently, in the last few weeks, have read your book, One and Done. It is definitely something that I could not keep my hands off of. The characters are so honest, so real, especially to the Black and queer experience. It gives us a chance to see things from a different scope, especially a lot of both of your characters work in the realm of student life. And I wanted to kind of dive a little bit into that. So what initially sparked your love of storytelling and what inspired you to write this particular novel?
Yeah, so first of all, thank you all for inviting me. I'm really happy to be here today. And um, yeah, thank you. My love of writing actually started when I was a kid growing up in Detroit. I'm a product of Detroit Public Schools. And when I was in K through 5, they invested a lot in us in terms of the arts. So whether it was writing, acting, dance, sports, all those kind of extracurriculars. And I always gravitated toward creative writing, and I would enter a lot of the short story contests and poetry contests. I wrote a lot of bad, cheesy poetry back in elementary school. That's why I'm not a songwriter today. But um, but I just always gravitated toward creative writing, and so that habit and that hobby, stayed with me throughout middle school, high school, and even college, where I just always had this passion for, storytelling. I watched a lot of stories growing up with my grandma and aunties. And so, the stories on TV kind of fed into my love and passion for storytelling in real life. And so, that's kind of where it all came from. It's just like, I guess it's just a natural gift that I had like in elementary school that just stayed with me throughout my entire life so far.
That's awesome. So you've been basically a artist, a creative mind your whole life.
Yeah, you can definitely say that. I mean, although there were stints and there were times when, I was growing up because I went to one of those like gifted magnet schools where they were trying to push us into the maths and the sciences and to be an engineer or a doctor or something. And as much as I tried to do that, I realized I was like this circle trying to fit into a square, and that science and math wasn't for me. Of course, now as an adult, I'm happily jealous for all my peers who are doctors and engineers because they're making good money now, big money, more than creative.
Yeah.
But however, I have no regrets with staying in my lane in terms of creative writing. I did a little bit of academic writing a few years ago when I finished a doctorate degree, so I had to write a dissertation, and I dabbled in journalism a little bit as well. So it just feels natural. It just feels like it was something that's always been part of my DNA from the time I was little, that I would be doing some kind of writing, and some kind of creating, whether it was you know academic writing or whether it was writing romance novels.
Mm.
And like I said, that is important because a lot of us are creative minds, creative professionals, and it's important to follow your passion and not go sometimes go against the grain of what everybody expects you to do. Even though, like you said, you're not good at math. I don't think I was good at math either. I barely got passed with maybe a C plus, maybe B minus, just because I
Yeah.
was a student that didn't cause any trouble. They just said, "Go ahead, we just gonna pass you." Um, but
Absolutely.
yeah,
And I'm one of those adults now. The way I balance my checkbook is by looking at my balance on Monday mornings after the weekend, and I'm like, okay,
yes.
I still got money to get through the week. Terrible habit to be in, but that's how good and how bad my math habits are. But it also like just goes to show, a couple weeks ago I was doing this panel and talking with some parents of people about to go to college and everything. And, I was just telling them, let your young people follow their gifts, because whatever their gift is what they're going to excel in and what may ultimately become their profession. And so I really felt like that was something that my parents, invested in, they honored. And so I'm just really happy to have had that support from them for something that just seems natural. Like I couldn't imagine sitting in an engineering firm right now or an architect's firm. I just wonder how happy or not happy I would be, minus the good paychecks and everything.
Hmm.
you know?
Right.
Yeah, it's either you got to go with profit or passion. And sometimes, if you really invest your time into your passion, you will see the benefits of it in time. So I'm glad that you brought that up because a lot of people, especially in today's climate, they're questioning whether they should do a career move or they should, try something different or really lean into what their gifts are. So I'm glad that you brought that up.
Mhm.
Um, in your writing, however, you highlight both black and queer voices. Why do you think it's so powerful to have stories that reflect both black and queer experiences, and why do you think that it matters, especially in today's climate?
hmm Yeah, so I think it's important because everyone deserves to see themselves in print or on film or on podcasts or in any kind of media. People deserve that and are owed it because um, it's a chance for people to feel affirmed in terms of who they are, how they identify, how they feel about their lives and everything. And at the same time, not everyone's rushing to do research on Black queer lives. And so, I think that, by having books and novels and other offerings about Black queer communities, it gives people the opportunity maybe to dip a toe into the swimming pool, so to speak, and kind of learn about communities that maybe they aren't um, necessarily privy to on a day-to-day basis, or maybe they don't have black and queer people in their circles or in their families, etc. And so I think it gives people an opportunity to at least start to learn and have a little bit of curiosity around communities that they're not a part of. And I think especially for fiction, it's important because I think that well, the great thing about fiction is that it's all made up, but it can definitely reflect and be rooted in some realities that people live. And so I think that it's just important to the creative world, to the world of fiction, to have black and queer representation there. It definitely matters, and it matters, to the self-esteem of young people, for even for adults who are still grappling with issues of who they are and how they live and everything. And so, to me, it's important. it was important to me when I was growing up. I used to sneak and read those books by Elin Harris and James Earl Hardy, who, me and my high school friends, we would sneak and read them because they were about Black gay people. And it was because we were yearning for and wanting to see ourselves in print or, in the creative arts. And so I think what's exciting now in the time that we're recording this is that there's so many great representations out there, whether it's film, podcasts, books, social media. That I think that it's great for us to have a wide range of representations of Black and queer identities out there.
Absolutely. And that's one of the things that I loved about the book is the sense you mentioned it, the sense of community, especially with the main characters and the community that's around them. We focused, I know a lot of it focused on, this romance that was kind of sparked, but at the same time it's like they're also grappling with adulting issues and dealing with workplace stuff, and I thought that was very, very poignant because we don't necessarily see what we only see a certain aspect of the community, but
Yeah.
we don't always see the full picture. That there's a lot of deep rooted issues and friendships and community that is there. So that's one of the things, like I said, that really stood out to me.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like, so like, yeah, in One and Done, of course, so like for people who are new to the romance genre, romance novels follow a formula. It's about a central couple. There is a formula in terms of the meet cute, the falling in love, the third act breakup, and then the coming together. And so that's a guarantee in romance. You're going to have a happily ever after. But I think that one thing that's true both in fiction and in our real lives is that none of us can survive without community and without found family. And so whether it's in the city that people live in or the city that people leave to go find themselves and be themselves, oftentimes finding themselves is through establishing a sense of family that may or may not be their family by birth. And I definitely wanted to reflect that in One and Done with these Black and queer characters from across the range of genders and sexualities. Well, first of all, I know there's this myth out there that there's no Black people in San Francisco and just a few in Oakland, and there are. I'm
There
one of them.
are. There definitely
I'm one of
are.
10, one of 15 maybe, but all 15 of us know each other. All 15 of us, and there's more than 15 of us. But in terms of being Black and gay, Black and queer, there is a sense of community here. And I think that because we are small in numbers, that we do have this sense of support, this sense of knowing each other, wanting to know each other and be around each other. And I wanted to reflect that in One and Done, that found family aspect. And so for people who haven't read it yet, there's this whole crew of people who work in this bar called Bo, whether they're bartenders, whether they're drag performers, whether they're just customers who come in and out of this bar called Bo, and they are supplemental to the main characters of Taylor and Dustin, who are the central couple in One and Done. And so, yeah, I definitely wanted to reflect that sense that you know, at least I hope in real, well, we can talk about that later. Because sometimes, when people couple off, they just couple off and they kind of cocoon themselves. But I think it's important in fiction and in real life that people have a sense of community and don't just, focus on just themselves and everything. So I hope that came across in One and Done. I really appreciate your kind words about that, what you got from it when you were reading it.
Yeah, definitely. I felt it was not just a romance novel. It was the fact of falling in love with the city and the people and the community and learning to, really accept who you are, especially with the main character grappling with trying to balance his personal life and his professional life and trying to find how does that meet in the middle. And speaking of relationships, I think Dr. Dre, you had a question in regards to the book as well, since we're speaking
Um,
about unexpected romantic sparks.
you are correct. I had to be the one to ask the juicy question because I'm the one with the vodka. So in the book, we see an unexpected romantic spark between two colleagues. an aspiring university president and a consultant. Now, have you yourself partaken in a workplace romance, and what advice would you give to someone thinking about pursuing one of those?
Well, that's such a great question, and of course you would ask it. Um, so,
Mm,
so in real life, I have not partaken of a workplace romance. Although I have had some workplace crushes,
mm,
whether it's presently or in the past. But I've always had. So one of my very first jobs in higher education, my supervisor, his name was Patrick Bailey. He sat me down as a new young professional, and he kind of put this little thing on. He's like, "This circle here is our university. The rest of the circle is the rest of the world. You don't date in a circle." And I was
Mm.
mm.
like, but then, and of course, as a young professional, when you're younger and you're closer in age to college students, you're kind of like, what are you talking about? What are you talking? Of course, there's a lot of reasons why that's not good to date within, especially in a higher ed setting, whether it's, with colleagues or supervisors and things like that. So no, I haven't partaken. However, I know it happens. And it's because people spend 8, 9, 10 hours a day with people. They might spend more time with their work family than they do with their family or friends. And so, I mean, I think it can naturally happen. And that's when I know in One and Done, the character Taylor had a conversation with his mom and dad around, okay, I'm falling for this consultant who was
Yeah.
contracted to work with the university, so not per se an employee. And I think the dad's advice was so funny when the dad said, if you're going to do it, you better date someone who's across on your level. Don't date someone who's up. Don't date someone who's below your level.
Exactly.
That's when all the HR issues are going to come into play and everything. And and I also think that if it comes to workplace romance, I think that that honesty with your HR rep is just important when it begins, because as my HR person at the university I work at now, she's like, everyone gets invited to the divorce party, but they don't tell you when they're at the wedding party, meaning that
Mm.
all the fallout from the breakup from a workplace relationship, that's when oftentimes our HR reps first hear about it, instead of people being upfront and saying, we think there's something going on, we want you to know right now. And so I mean, I think it's possible, people do it, I haven't done it. I think that people should be honest with their HR reps or supervisors if they see something is like bubbling up. Um, yeah. What about you all? What are your thoughts on workplace romances?
I can go for
Actually,
me.
that's happened for me
Okay.
once.
Okay.
As a screenwriter, I'm still developing a series, but in the beginning stages of developing a script idea that I was working on, I had met another writer, and we really connected. We just connected. Of course, we were on the same level because
Yeah.
going with the
Yeah.
theme, going on the same level. And I wish I did not partake in the type of workplace romance because, like you said, people don't really know the wedding party, but they know the divorce party. So we were, trying to keep it professional at work, but then of course when you're off hours you can do whatever you want, but you have to be mindful because you're in an environment where people talk, and your relationship becomes the center of gossip. So for us, I wish I didn't go into it because we didn't necessarily, of course we didn't last, but unfortunately it's like you kind of have to try to walk that fine line, like when can we be seen together, when can we talk, because we're in an environment where people are watching you. So
Yeah.
it's like that's the whole thing about workplace social, and that's what I saw when I read One and Done. It was just like it was Taylor and Dustin trying to find a way to communicate without letting other colleagues know that they were seeing each other. I thought it was interesting, and it was just every time I would go into a chapter and I was like, oh, they gonna get caught. They gonna get caught. I don't know when they gonna get caught,
But I
but
gotta
Well,
they
get
they
gonna get
didn't do
caught.
caught.
anything at work per se, except for maybe a few little shoulder rubs or little temple rubs, or sitting in the office after hours, having some deep conversation. but they had that nosy coworker, Wes Jenkins,
Yes, Wes
who was
Jenkins.
always kind of lurking around and kind of had this sense of, and this is the thing, people
Be
always
the
know. I
West
mean, people
Jenkins. I
fighting.
would know. I'm I know
Wait,
something's going on. I had that happen in my work
yes.
environment before. I was like, there's something going on here. Y'all
She
going
said,
down
"Did
to
he
count
just? Did he
seven
just?
way too
Did they
much.
just touch shoulders? What's going on there? I saw a spark."
Touch shoulder.
So
But he also, but you know what? But Wes Jenkins, who is just a fun, love to hate character, at least in my view, from
yes,
writing and from what I hear from readers. Wes Jenkins even had that spidey sense at there was this workplace retreat they were on, and had
yes,
some kind of sense. Now Wes has his own psychological profile that we could probably analyze and everything, because there was a lot of
baby.
jealousy and something going on with Wes,
It was
but.
competition. The competition, I think he wanted to find something to have over Taylor. So this romance would have definitely taken it over because he wanted that position. And that's what it's funny because I work, myself, Ebony, and Dre, we also work in television and film as well. So it's like when you read the book, you see the workplace romance, but you see it like cinematically in your brain. So that's what the great thing about your book is, the fact that you could see all of this going down every chapter. And it's just like, I was like, I don't know what's gonna happen, but they gonna slip. Something gonna slip up. And and I think it was because I kept watching that character, because that character, like Ebony said, it's like I know what's happening, but I can't
Yeah.
say anything. But I know he wants to say something, but it's like, do you, if you are in a workplace romance and you see something going on, do you speak up and tell HR right then and there, or do you see how the relationship plays out first before you report it? I think that's the like touchy part right there.
That's the touchy
Well,
part. And
I
for me, no, go ahead, go
no,
ahead.
no, I was saying I think you do. You would not. I wouldn't tell HR. I'm not getting involved in nobody's
Absolutely.
business.
I'm gonna say we too. In my real life, I am not that run and tell it kind of coworker. I'm like, if there are secrets, they will come out on their own. Well,
Hmm.
shadiness in the workplace will come out on its own, and it's not up to me to be the one to tell a supervisor or a coworker. I'm like, people show their true. It's like that Maya Angelou saying, "What's that? People show you who they are the first time they tell you. If they tell you they're crazy, they probably are, or if
Hmm.
they tell you they're mean, they probably are." So people tell on themselves without any of us having to intervene and everything.
Absolutely. Speaking of
What?
secrets, let's do a quick segue before we continue our line of questioning. Speaking of secrets, we have a very hot topic that kind of ran across our desk yesterday, which involves one of the Real Housewives of Potomac. I don't know if you guys are aware of it, but Real Housewives of Potomac star Wendy Osefo and her husband Eddie Osefo were arrested Thursday in Maryland after being indicted by a grand jury for allegedly falsely reporting a home burglary and theft. What do we think about that? Because I mean, I know I watch RHOP. I know Ebony does, but I'm not sure if anybody else is familiar with that particular show.
I'm not. I saw something come across my feed yesterday. I didn't click on it, and that's because I haven't watched any Real Housewife franchises in a few years. So, but I'd love to hear what you all have to say about it.
So what you're saying is, just let me be clear. You you live in San Francisco, okay, and you don't watch Real Housewives of anything.
Not
I
anymore. I haven't
I
He's
watched
a
a
have
Real Housewife
professional,
franchise in
okay?
years. But all my besties do, and they're always telling me, "Fred, you need to get back into the Real Housewives." I truth be told, I'm not a big TV person. Yeah, I'm more of a podcast person. I'm more of a I'll watch videos on YouTube. I'll listen to books or read books and things like that, and watching these. But yeah, I'm not the biggest TV person. Don't hate me for it.
Like I don't watch
No,
nobody's
TV.
mad.
I'm a writer.
Nobody's mad.
it's nothing wrong. It's nothing wrong with that. Like I said, I know for me, it's kind of like an escape. I think the reality shows is kind of like it's that we all like a little bit of drama,
Yeah,
just kind of
yeah.
an escapism from our everyday lives. So sometimes you just want to see what's going on and how other people live and how things are going. Um, I know
Exactly.
myself and Ebony watched the show and we've discussed it um, extensively. I know we had a conversation yesterday. I think Wendy's been on the show since the beginning. She is a very accomplished lady. She's a professor. She's a political commentator. And recently she ventured out into a business with her husband, a cannabis business called Happy Eddie. And basically, what happened was with her, she's facing 16 charges related to false, misleading information of fraud. And basically, and so is her husband. Her husband has 18 charges against him as well for the same crimes. Basically, what happened was it was $200,000 worth of items that they claimed were taken from their home, and they had made a false report. However, they caught them at a store returning about 20K of those items on surveillance. So she was caught. You would think somebody with a college, background would know better not to.
Common
Uh,
sense ain't that common.
exactly,
They're just
exactly.
like us. They're just like us.
I'm gonna say that maybe she has a double of everything, because innocent till proven guilty. So maybe she just had a
Uh-uh.
couple. She had two of the same Birkin bags, and she returned one of them, and then one of them got stolen. I don't know.
Yes, I would love to know which rich person out here in the world is having two of the same thing so they can be seen twice with it on camera at any point. You tried it. You absolutely tried it.
Exactly. But the thing is, they're living a certain lifestyle. So you're on this show, you have to wear the latest clothes, you have to have the biggest home, renovations, all of these things that her and her husband were probably pouring money into. And they kind of basically started to kind of like live too high above their means. So like I said, she just recently, I think in the last season, she quit her job as a professor at the university that she was working with, and she kind of quit being a political commentator, and she's just kind of just there's kind of like a deficit there in her life right now. So I guess they thought, if we were able to do this and get away with it, maybe we'd be able to maintain, because they have 3 children, which unfortunately are affected by this. And like I said, I don't like to see families experiencing things like this, but at the same time, you would think that she would know better, her and her husband, even though they're on the show, not to get themselves involved in, criminal activity. I know it's hard, everybody can't be Candy Burris, but at the same time, you know, you can't fall into the trap of trying to keep up with appearances. So
Right. Yeah.
we hope the best
So
for
be
her.
it.
We do. We do.
Indeed.
I had a question for you, Frederick. Um, I
Yeah.
just wanted to know, what is your writing process like? And for this particular book, was there like an inspiration that you drew upon from like any personal experiences with, because I've known people who have had some situations, and has was did you get inspired? Were you inspired by maybe someone in your circle? Um,
Okay.
when
Yeah.
you're writing, are you
So
like a planner, or do you? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
oh, no. This is cool. So like let's start with process first. So process is so I'm an extreme morning person. I can get up at 3:30, 4 in the morning, get
Mm-mm.
a cup of coffee and just sit and write, cuz I call those like my quiet hours.
Yes.
My
Like
inspiration.
because no one generally at that time is texting, calling. Well, my family group chat, because they were on the East Coast, I'm on the West Coast. So, when they're up working, starting to get work at 6 in the morning, their time, my phone's usually going off. But for the most part, it's pretty quiet. So I can get a lot of stuff done and my mind is pretty clear and free and stuff like that. So I'm a morning person. And then on weekends, I like to, because my office at work, I have my monitors and big desk and stuff, so I can spread out and do stuff. I have a tiny place in San Francisco, so um, So weekends I go to my office and I'll spread out and write. But that's kind of my process, and I am a plotter. For anyone who's thinking about, plotting versus writing whatever comes out, I used to be one of those people that would just write whatever came out because of my job and things that in my lack of time for writing. I have to plot out everything, and so I plot out all my chapters, what's supposed to happen in them, or at least some of the beats, so that I know as I go through, I have something to write toward when I wake up in the morning and everything. And then in terms of inspiration for One and Done, so all fiction is fiction and made up. However, it is sometimes inspired by things that we observe or see. Writers are really nosy. We
Hmm.
listen to people's conversations. We watch people in clubs and bars and shopping centers and stuff like that. So One and Done, the premise is that this person, Taylor James, is an aspiring university president. He got put in charge of the campus's like evaluation or accreditation process. And this consultant is coming in who he eventually falls for, and they fall for each other to evaluate the university. They didn't know they were going to be working together when they met at this drag brunch, Beyonce themed, drag show. So anyway, inspiration came from, so in real life, I am not Taylor or Dustin, but in real life, I was on this subcommittee of the university I work at now, San Francisco State. We did accreditation about 4 or 5 years ago, and I was on this small committee. They came in and interviewed us about our experiences and stuff. And the person who was interviewing us was so obnoxious and so like, when people ask you these questions when they know the answer, but they're just kind of,
Trying to
just
catch
trying to
you.
get under your skin or whatever.
Yeah.
So this consultant who was in asking us these questions, I was like, this is so annoying. He knows what he wants from us, da da da. But at the same time, I was looking at him, I was kind of like, he's kind of cute. What would happen if after hours, if I happen to go to the Castro or go to one of the bars in Oakland and he happened to be out, would we connect? Would we be able to connect on a personal basis knowing we're on this project? Because actually was obnoxious and gorgeous at the same time. And
A dangerous
and
combination.
well, I know, obnoxious and gorgeous. Go figure. I mean, that's probably all of our lives. Um, anyway, that's where the first spark came for thinking about, I've never written a novel that's set in entirely in higher education, even though that's my profession. And then I thought, oh, that's some built-in conflict and tension if it's the person who is leading this committee and the person who's evaluating the work of the person. Like that just brings a lot of built-in tension and workplace angst and stuff like that. And then you add on the layer of they actually kind of like each other and
Yes.
everything. And so that was the inspiration, was sitting in this meeting and thinking this consultant was so obnoxious and so fine. And so, I had my little thoughts. I had my little wild thoughts about him and everything. And that was kind of the beginning of thinking about how could I craft this into a story that was all made up, but based in real life San Francisco and
Nice,
everything.
nice. That's so
Love it.
interesting.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Love
Awesome.
it.
I like
No.
the fact that your process is also to plot. As a writer myself, at least aspiring, should I mean, I've written scripts, but I really would like to apply that to what I do because I sometimes try to just write everything out and it just does not. It's I'm all over the place. Whereas plotting seems like a more linear way to get the story and everything that you're trying to get out, into your
Exactly. And it seems like it's even more important in screenwriting because I know you have to hit certain beats, you have like those different acts and what has to happen in each act and everything. And so it's almost the same like in novels, especially in romance where it follows a formula in terms of like length, in terms of number of chapters. I'm sure for screenwriters, it's number of scenes and what has to happen in each one. And so for me, outlining is, I used to think it was a pain.
hmm
I used to think it was a pain both in academic writing and in creative writing, but it's such a helpful tool for me. It keeps me on track because for me when I sit down at the laptop, I can look up at on my walls I keep these big post-its with these little post-its on it, and I just look and I'm like, okay, that's what I need to write to today, and so I can get into that as opposed to sitting down and thinking, what am I going to write today and everything. So, yeah. Well, what about you all in your writing processes? What works good for you all as writers?
For
I
me,
was go ahead.
no, go ahead.
Go
You're
ahead.
good. No,
No, go
okay.
ahead, ladies first.
Thank you. For me, it's now been the plotting. I
Uh-huh.
am working on a project now, and I took that. Like I was just like, I need to go back to the basics where it was in elementary, where they had the little circles and the spider things going. Like call them
Yeah.
the alien ships. You got one here and there, and so I had to start doing that. And then now it's just when I have an idea, I'll write down the bullet points of, for example, like the one I'm working on now is a sci-fi, and she's a biochemist. So I'm just writing like little points, like goes to the office. This is where they try to take her. They're taking her serum, and then knowing that, okay, people are living underground, like, so I know what I have to go back in there and touch on. So I the with this one, it has been that way. Before, it was just whatever came to my mind, and then when I would go back and reread it, I'd be like, I don't this don't make no sense. I'm like, I got two
And
genres
that's
in
when you
here.
end up tossing out everything you wrote before, and you're like, if I had just outlined, it would have been so much better.
It's so much more easier.
I just asked ChatGPT to write me a story and then move on with my life. I'm not really a writer. I just go over to
Okay.
Joel's house and he does all the
Yeah,
planning and I just throw out ideas. That's
yeah,
it.
Okay.
yeah. We're currently working on developing a script for a kind of an LGBT thriller, psycho thriller,
Ooh.
um, that is based on some real life experiences that both of me and him have shared, and stories that we've shared together. And I'm kind of like an organized person. I do like an outline. However, I start with character background, like breaking down characters and their backgrounds, and kind of like what we call kind of like a pitch in a way, but it's like
Yeah.
like they usually do the 4 or 5 page pitch where you do it's the genre, it's the synopsis, it's the list of characters, and I kind of work from that and then go into like you said the beats of each character so that I know that I'm getting closer to where I to the end. Because if I know
Yeah.
what's gonna, sometimes for film we start at the end. Sometimes we like, okay, this is how the ending goes.
Okay.
Let's work backwards. So that's what I've
Yeah.
been kind of doing lately. Like, where do I want to land, and how do I get there from the ending of a script to the beginning. So yeah, everybody has their own, you know, ways of working, and but I respect the fact that you're an early riser. I'm an early riser too. I feel like the only time that you can be able to do something like that is getting up at times when there's not a lot of distraction. So I like that process, better than kind of doing it later in the day when you've already gone through your whole day and like now I gotta get these pages written, and you're tired and you have other things on your mind. So I like
Mhm.
that strategy of just kind of like you know designating that time, like I'm going to write between 3 and 6 a.m. or 6 and 9 or whatever, because then now you're like, okay, I have a goal, so that the next day I can move on to something else. So pretty
Yeah,
good.
and I know it's different for different writers. Like I have some writer colleagues and friends who they're like they can work all day, they can take care of their kids and families. Luckily, I don't have it's just me taking care of me, but they can take care of their kids. And they're like, when 9 o'clock comes and I put everyone to bed, then that's my time to write from like 9 until 2 a.m. And I'm like, I'm so sleepy and wiped out from the day. My creative juices are gone. I can't even think about anything but the couch, the bed. That's it.
That's it.
At that time.
She's like, office hours are closed. Office hours are closed.
Absolutely. I mean,
Yes.
I wish there's a way. I wish there was a way for me to be like on 24/7, to be able to like just be alert and energized and creative all day long. But I think that by having a day job, which is one of these things that I know a lot of creatives have to kind of weigh and balance, the whole thing about, well, a day job gets me some benefits and a steady paycheck while I'm in my creative life and everything. But then I think that most of us, fantasize and love this idea of being able to not have the day job and to be able to do our creative work 24/7. And of course, that comes with lots of prayer and preparation and higher power intervening and saying, yes, it is all yours. And we're going to manifest that for everyone who's listening, watching, here, and everything like that.
Absolutely.
But that's one of those dilemmas we all have. Like, there's days when I go to writers' conferences or I'm at book events and everything, and I'm like, I could do this all day long, just sit and talk to readers, and I could be in a cafe with other writers, and we could just have our headphones on and be together and writing, and not even talking to each other, but just knowing we're all productive with each other. Which kind of goes back to your question uh, about workplace romance, and I definitely think that people who work in the same industry have a lot of natural like likes and interests. Like,
Hmm.
I think that creativity, that energy is like is strong, it's heated, and people get it as opposed to like maybe a creative and a non-creative. And
Yeah.
so I definitely can see how sparks can fly between like-minded people who have a vision about what they want to do with their lives in terms of creativity, in terms of career goals. And so I can definitely see how that attraction can happen when you're in the same field or industry or you're on a set together, because you just have this connection about the passion for the project and the art and everything.
Yes.
So I can see how and why it happens and everything. I mean, that's why we hear about so many Hollywood marriages happening because of
Hmm.
people falling in love on set.
I mean, cause you're there all the time. You know, who else are you going to talk to? You know, if you're spending, whether you're at a university spending hours, in a boardroom dealing with accreditations, or you're on a set for hours shooting a film or a television set, it's like you don't necessarily have a lot of time outside of that to socialize. So you're going to connect with the people that you work with, and you're going to learn more about them, and you're going to share things about your personal life, and that's where that connection starts to grow and those sparks, because you're like, oh, okay, we have this in common,
Yeah.
and then it becomes, sometimes conversations become less about business and more about personal. So yes, I do see that as well. um Dre, I think you had one more question you wanted to ask.
I do actually, and it's kind of related because just this past weekend, I believe you attended the Black Book Bash in Jacksonville, Florida,
Yeah.
highlighting Black authors. So you were pretty much amongst your peers. Can you tell us more about your experience there, and if there was anybody who was obnoxious and gorgeous?
Of course, of course.
Well, the Black Book Bash was a wonderful, wonderful event presented by Casey Kelly and Dr. Ian Smith, who wrote all those like what's that, shred
Yes.
diet books and stuff. And it was a great event. About 150 authors, about 800 to 1,000 readers, lots of vendors, great panels, and it was just great being among Black people and people who appreciate Black books, being in one setting. Like we all kind of nerd out over what we read, what we're writing. It's nice. Like I was at a table next to this woman named Danielle Allen, who writes this Curvy Girl series, which is so popular now in Black romance. She writes about plus size women with their own rosters of love and everything. So Curvy Girl Summer and plus size player and stuff like that. And so we just vibe and bond. And so it was great. Jacksonville is interesting. I was in the hotel most of the time, so I didn't get to, enjoy all the all the fruits of Jacksonville, Florida.
Mm-mm. They don't have any fruits.
Um, huh?
They don't have any fruits. Jacksonville is wild.
They, they have lots of humidity and rain.
There it
Oh,
is.
But you know what? I did manage to go out, and so you're talking about someone who's obnoxious and handsome. One of the volunteers at the fest, all along, he was very nice with me and one of my friends there and everything. And so it happened to be Jacksonville Pride weekend. We didn't know it. And I guess because it's so hot in the summer, they have to do it in, the fall months. And so we went out to one of the little local establishments after the book fest was over. And it was cute and everything. But, I had to come back to San Francisco and Florida is Florida. And
Well,
I
Yeah.
all
get your
right.
question. Yes.
Yeah.
But it's really nice, and I'm sure you all appreciate being around it's just nice being around other people who do the same kind of thing or have the same kind of like interests and everything. And so I came I sold a lot of books. I know the bookstore, they're sold out or one and done, which I was so happy about. And but I ended up bringing and buying more books than I bought so many books and received so many books there. And my TBR, my to be read list is so big. My pile is so big. I don't know when I'm gonna get around to reading because I usually don't read when I'm writing, and I'm on a deadline now. By the end of the month, it was October 1st. I asked for a little deadline because I needed some time. But when I'm writing, I can't read because I don't want those thoughts getting in my head. As soon as I get this manuscript turned in for what's coming out in summer 2026, I have about a good month and a half where I can catch up on reading all the stuff that's sitting on my desks and drawers and
Right.
audiobooks and stuff like that.
How long does it take you
There
to
you
normally
go.
read a book?
Pardon
Like
me?
how long does it take you to read a novel? Like how many days can you get?
It depends. If it's an audio book, I can do it I usually do it like when I go to the gym, I listen to books, or like when I'm walking to work, or on the train, I listen to books and stuff. So I can get through those in like maybe 2 3 days, depending upon how long the audio book is. Physical books, it depends because sometimes I fall asleep with a physical book, or even with the ebook, like on a iPad or something. I'll fall asleep with them, but audiobooks are really helpful for me. And audiobooks are reading. I know there's some people who are like, "That's not reading. That's listening to something." It's definitely reading to me. But if it's a good book, I can get through it in a couple days and everything. I don't know how. There's some people who can go through like 5 or 6 books in a week. I'm not that person, but I know people who are, and they can read up to like 200 books a year. If I get through a
Ooh.
good maybe 20 a year, that's good. 'Cause that's like two a month
Yeah.
on
Right.
average. That's kind of manageable for me. But like when I see people, they're like, "Oh yeah, I've read 5 6 books this week." I'm like, "How are you doing it?" But it's because they listen to audio. They put it on 2.5 speed fast, and I'm like, I can't listen to a book. I'm like, I'm not
Right.
getting anything out of it, you know?
I got to do both. I got to read and I have to listen. I think for me, having the physical book and doing the audio, it
Yeah,
allows me to kind of like stay focused and like whoever's reading the book, if they're in character and they're like, it's like, I want you to read to me, while it's kind of like old school, like we would do when
yes,
we were kids. Like
yep,
we would have the old school like tapes and you would read the book with the author or with someone who's a person who's doing the voiceover. But I just know I have to do both because I'm like you, if I do the just the physical book, it better be interesting for me to stay engaged. Because if it's not, I'm like I get distracted, and then that book will be sitting there on that desk for a minute until I'm ready to pick it back up. But I know with your book, it was just like I had both, so I was like, okay, I'm engaged, and it was just
oh,
so juicy. It was like like I was like, what's gonna happen next? Like I'm sitting up here for hours in this room just reading this book. So, like I said, I think it depends on the reader. Sometimes it's like some people are more physical, old school, hardcover book or audio books. But like I said, audiobooks is reading. Because some
yep.
people are more visual in their head. They want to kind of hear it and see it in their mind. So it
Yeah,
was kind of
I,
great.
I really appreciate your kind words about One and Done and how it kept you engaged in reading and everything. And I started thinking a lot about, and I was listening to a podcast yesterday about how like some people will give a book like 20 pages in, 30 pages in, maybe 50 pages in, and I think now with people's attention spans, they want to be in on the first 2 5 10 pages and
Hmm.
everything. And so that actually got me thinking, I'm working on a manuscript now. It's almost done. I just have to add a few more thousand words to it. But I actually switched my chapter 2 to chapter 1 in this upcoming book because I was like, this chapter 1 that was initially chapter 1 it's good. It's quality writing. It's good, but it doesn't put you right in the middle of something
Hmm.
happening. And so I had to do a switch. And I'm sure we do that a lot, and they tell us not to edit while we're writing. And I try not to do that. But I was like, wow, if I'm going to get someone into this book within, a chapter or so, I've got to switch these two chapters around. And I think that that's so important in terms of finding the books that connect with us is, for me, I like getting into the story like right away. Like if it takes me 5 chapters in to finally figure out what's going on, that's not my book. I know some people have that patience, but for me, I kind of like jumping in right away. And those are the kind of books I grew up reading. So like whether it was Eric Jerome Dickey or Terry McMillan or Elin Harris, when I would sneak and read those, it was like there was something
Same.
juicy on the page right away that got me in, in the beginning and everything. So yeah, that's it.
Well, speaking of your manuscript, we hear that you have a new book that you're working on.
Mhm.
Love is a contact sport, which is going to be, I think you said it's going to be released next year, sometime next year. Can you tell us a little bit more about it? Can you give us a little insight to it? I know you can't say too much, but what
Absolutely.
can we expect? What can readers expect?
Yeah, happy to share. So it's called Love is a Contact Sport. It will be out in June 2026 on Bold Strokes Books. And it's a Black, queer, second chance college reunion
Ooh.
romance novel between two characters who knew each other in college. And they kind of had a thing that they had to keep secret because one was a basketball player on the college basketball team, and one was like the campus poster boy. And so, back in their day in college, they kind of had a secret, relationship. They loved each other. And then circumstances happened that kept them apart until a college reunion, like 20 years later. And they realized that that spark has never really left, even though they haven't been in touch with
Mm.
each other over the years. So that's a look that's the gist of Love as a Contact Sport. And that came about because I started thinking a lot about how, so like, I don't go on Facebook a lot. Facebook is mostly for seeing what high school or college friends are doing or what your neighbors are doing and stuff. But I started getting fascinated with seeing people who I went to college with or high school with and seeing what they're doing with their lives and everything. And I think for many of us, we have this, I wonder what this person is doing. And we'll kind of Google them a little bit and see what's going on. Or maybe it was someone we once dated and maybe we're not, in their lives currently. And so it got me thinking a lot about, people who once were in our lives and could we maintain or build a friendship as adults? Could we build and maintain a relationship as adults at a different stage in life? And so that was kind of the impetus behind thinking about love as a contact sport. So I'm really excited about it. I did ask for a couple weeks extension in getting it done. So I'll be getting that turned in within the next couple of weeks or so, and then all the marketing and cover reveal and stuff, which I'm so excited about the cover. Rajan Gill, who did the cover for One and Done, is doing Love
Yeah.
as a Contact Sport. I'm so excited for it. It's so beautiful, the cover. And I love seeing my two black men on a cover.
That's what I loved about One and Done. The same thing. It's like we need to see it. It's important to see it, because
Yeah.
once you see it, you know that it's, you know, there are other people who are experiencing it, and there's an audience who is going to support that. So, like I said, we're very excited for your next book. I know we're all going to read it. Like I said, we just want to give a shout out to that.
Thank you.
I know we have one more question for
Okay.
you.
Yep. And
Dre, do you want to take that question, or Ebony, do you want to take that question? It's the special
I
question,
think
number
I,
10.
Uh oh.
I think Ebony should go ahead and knock that out.
okay.
Or I could do it, whatever.
I got it.
She
I
said,
got
okay. All right.
I wanted to actually touch on okay, we'll go to 10. On a lighter note, as a member of the B, what's your take on the recent drama with flying car mishap at the Houston show that she just recently was at, where the stolen hard drive possibly had her unreleased tracks on there? What's your take?
Are you super
So,
mad? Do you got a cape?
I mean, the Beehive doesn't
you will find
play.
that person.
Right? Like,
So,
I
first thing
mean,
I'll say is,
you guys already got an army going. What's going on? What y'all doing?
you know what, that disappointed me at the possibility that there was a hard drive with some unreleased music on it, and if it's act 3 or not, that really disappointed me. So I'm like, no, not the hard. But then I'm also like, people got to be careful with everything, especially if you're in the inner circle. You just got to be careful with everything in your possession, whether it's a marked car, unmarked car. People are always watching the team around the team. and everything. So we just always have to be careful if we're in that circle and everything. I'm of the mindset of if there is leaked music, I will never listen to it. I will never download it. I don't want to know what any leaked products are,
Yeah.
because I just really want to respect the integrity of the creative process. So that's kind of where I stand on that and everything. But I was so sad and so disappointed at that possibility that there could have been some, unreleased music. But then the other thing is, we know Beyonce and her team are so creative. There's probably hundreds of unreleased tracks out there that could be cultivated into an act 3, act 4, act 5. And so, if someone loses 15, 20 songs, I know that's a lot of
That's a lot.
work and a lot of
It's a lot
creativity.
of time.
But we
Yeah.
probably know there's probably hundreds more out there that could also take its place. So I'm just hoping and praying that once they recover, if they have recovered everything, that none of it, gets released prematurely. So that's
Right.
kind of where I stand.
Have you
What is?
ever been afraid of that happening to your writing, like a manuscript,
Oh, yeah.
not like somebody
Yeah.
seeing it and taking it from you and it's
Mhm.
like you just written it?
Yeah, and that's why we got to be really careful with especially like when we share advanced reader copies with people, whether it's electronically, like the physical versions, I don't mind because they can't do anything with that. Oh, they could probably scan it and put it up. And there are actually some pirate sites that illegally put up authors' books and things like that. Just buy the book or download the book through a library or something. You can get stuff for free at a library. You don't have to steal it from an artist. Um, I mean, I worry about it, but I don't worry about it. Like it doesn't consume me all day. But I do know that with AI, with with some sites that download and offer people's books for free, that's out there. And I think it happens with all art forms. And so, I don't partake of free stuff. I try to pay for or get it through legit sources whenever I can. But I also understand that, the economy we're in, people want art and products and may not have the funds or resources to do it. But that's why we have libraries, and you can get someone's password on their streaming service if you really got to watch something or, something like that. But, I tend not to let that eat up my thoughts, all day about someone getting my manuscript. But I am careful about, the circle of like advanced readers that I have who read stuff with me, and for the most part it's usually other authors, so we kind of have that code of silence and trust with each other's work, that we're not gonna share it or borrow it or steal from it or anything. And so that's really helpful. And I gotta say, the book talk community and the bookstagram community is so full of integrity that a lot of those folks are really celebrating authors. And I met so many black book talkers and book bookstagrammers at this Black Book Bash or at the Black Romance Book Fest who really are on the side of authors. And so they do their best even to stop people from stealing, pirating, illegally borrowing people's work. And so, I think for the most part, we have a pretty solid and supportive community out there.
Nice. Nice.
I love that. It's like kind of
Fantastic.
like an honor society in that community, like an honor system. We have the same thing um, with us. Like for instance, with our scripts, myself, Ebony, Dre. I don't necessarily let people see a lot of stuff that I'm doing, but we have a level of trust where we can send each other pages, get each other's feedback because we all want everybody to win. You don't
Yeah.
want to, you know, see someone doing something and be like, hey, well, maybe I should do something. No, it's like, okay, if I trust you enough to read my script or read my pages, I'm hoping that you know that this is between us. That level of trust is there. So I'm glad that you guys have this. We have the kind of a uh,
Exactly.
similar ethics when it comes to
Mhm.
sharing work and getting feedback and getting that focus group, because sometimes it's like your family and friends or it could be other writers. So I'm kind of glad that you brought that up, because like I said, there's a lot of people who they can't come up with original ideas, so they rather try to piggyback on yours. So I'm glad
Mhm.
that you brought that up.
Yeah.
um I think we have one more question.
Okay.
This will be our last question. Um, Real quick, what would be your advice that you would give to aspiring novelists who want to follow in your footsteps and go through the process of authorship? Because I know, like I said, you had originally worked, you work in the student life, but you were also a former journalist
TV
in
news.
television,
Yeah, yeah,
TV
yeah.
news, you know, and what led to that jump, but at the same
Yeah.
time, what advice would you give to those who are looking to take that jump out of their own career and become aspiring novelists?
Exactly. So, great question. And I would say the first thing is to find a writer community. So, finding like-minded people who are either aspiring or established authors and writers is so important because it's that mindset, kind of like we talked about earlier. It's that mindset of people who are hungry for the same type of career and things like that. So finding a sense of community, not just finding people who are like not just building up, but like Issa Rae says, building across and building that network across because we're all going to lift and climb together. I would also say, paying attention to craft. So whether it's reading books on craft and improving craft is important. Whether it's getting them from a library or just looking online for what are some writing books that help me, with my writing craft is important. I would also say staying positive in online and social media spaces is so important. Like, I think that as people build their brand and reputation, I don't think people want to be known for being negative or tearing down other people's work. And so for me, it's like it's either positive about something or I don't say something at all. And I really try not to engage in the comments on denigrating other people's work or rumors and things like that. Um, and then the other thing I would just share is that the idea of discipline and we all talked about it here. Finding time to devote to the work of writing, which is really important. And so, that discipline is what leads to a completed project or making progress on a project. And so, discipline, I think, is really important. I'm not always the biggest role model because I love me a good happy hour sometimes.
Same. We do too.
Yes.
No, and Dre is partaking
Already started
right
his
now,
Right
happy hour.
now, right
or,
now.
or have
I'm
partaken.
I'm
Right.
always
Partooken.
happy.
Okay, you're always happy.
Always happy hours, right.
But
Welcome
that
to our world.
discipline is so important too. And so those are things I would share. And then I would say, if it's okay to reach out to writers, like and ask them about their journeys or look up some of your favorite writers and see where they've been on podcast or online venues and things like that, and just kind of listen to their stories, listen to how they did it. Not everything happens overnight. There's no such, well, there are some overnight successes, but for most people, they're building, their careers. And so everything is like a baby step. There's just one thing leads to another, to another, to another. And I would say finally, just always be nice to people because it's so important not to burn bridges or to develop a reputation of tearing people down or being a mean person or of not being supportive of other people. Like that gets, it's like that karma thing. It all comes back. So I think being nice and supportive is really helpful in terms of building a career and definitely the discipline part.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining us on this episode and hanging out with us. We really appreciate it. We're very thrilled to have you. Like I said, if for anybody who has not read the book, make sure that you go grab One and Done by Frederick Smith. Out now.
Yes.
You can find it on all of your book platforms. It's a great book. Trust me, you're not going to be wanting to put it down. And also keep a lookout for his upcoming book, Love is a Contact Sport, which will be out next summer, I believe. But thank you so much for taking time to hang out with us.
Thank you.
Like I said, this is the end of today's episode. Have a great weekend. We love you. This is Brew and Banter.
Glass is empty.
Yes, your glass is empty. I definitely see that. We may need another refill.
That's how we know the show is over.
The day is out. The show is over.
Yes. So that's a wrap on today's episode. Please be back next week, Monday, for another episode of Brew and Banter. And we're out.